I gripped the edge of my desk, trying to steady myself as the room spun around me. The familiar wave of dizziness was back, stronger than ever. My coworker, Amanda, rushed to my side. "Olivia, you're white as a sheet. Maybe you should go home." "I'm fine," I mumbled, though the words felt thick in my mouth. "Just need to drink Mom's smoothie. She says it'll give me energy." I reached for the mason jar filled with the greenish-brown liquid my mother had insisted I bring to work. Every morning for the past 3 months, she'd been making these special health smoothies for me. "You're looking so tired lately," she'd say, watching me drink every last drop. "This is my secret recipe. It'll make you stronger." My name is Olivia Chen, and at 28, I never expected my mother's health kick would land me in the emergency room. It started subtly. Mom had always been health conscious, but after my younger sister Megan became a wellness influencer with a growing social media following, Mom's interest in natural remedies intensified. She started attending Megan's wellness seminars, buying exotic supplements, and experimenting with various concoctions. I became her unwitting test subject. "You work too hard," she'd say, pushing another smoothie toward me during our mandatory Sunday family dinners. "These natural ingredients will help you keep up with your demanding job." At first, I appreciated her concern. Working as a legal assistant at a prestigious law firm was demanding, and I did feel tired most days. But as weeks passed, instead of feeling more energetic, I felt worse. The dizziness started first, then came the tremors and heart palpitations. Some days, I could barely focus on my computer screen. When I mentioned these symptoms to my family, their reactions were dismissive. "You're just not used to healthy living," Megan would say, flipping her perfectly styled hair. "Your body is detoxing." "Stop being dramatic," Dad would add. "Your mother is just trying to help. You've always been the lazy one." The lazy one. That label had followed me since childhood, a constant comparison to my energetic, ambitious sister. While Megan was building her wellness empire at 25, I was steadily working my way up in a traditional career. To them, my 9-to-5 job was a sign of complacency, not stability. Today's smoothie tasted different, more bitter than usual. As I forced myself to drink it, Amanda watched with concern. "I've never seen healthy drinks make someone look so sick," she said. "Are you sure there's nothing weird in these?" I shook my head, immediately regretting the movement as another wave of dizziness hit. "Mom makes them herself. She says it's all natural ingredients. Herbs," and the room tilted sharply. I heard Amanda's voice calling my name, but it sounded distant, underwater. The last thing I remembered was the mason jar slipping from my hand, green liquid spreading across the office floor. I woke up to bright hospital lights and the steady beep of monitors. A concerned-looking doctor was checking my vitals while Amanda spoke to someone in the hallway. "She's been drinking these smoothies for months. Yes, her mother makes them. No, I don't know what's in them." "Ms. Anderson," the doctor said, noticing I was awake. "We're running some tests. Your blood pressure is dangerously low, and your heart rhythm is irregular. Can you tell me what you've consumed today?" Before I could answer, my family burst into the room. Mom rushed to my bedside, her face a mask of concern. Megan followed, already recording with her phone. "Olivia, honey, you're scaring us. I told you to take better care of yourself. Have you been skipping meals again?" "Ma'am," the doctor interrupted, "we need to know exactly what was in the smoothie your daughter drank this morning." "Just natural ingredients," Mom replied quickly. "Kale, spirulina, some herbs from my special garden." "She's being dramatic," Megan chimed in, camera still rolling. "Probably just dehydrated." This would make a great content piece about work-life balance. The doctor's next words silenced the room. "We've taken samples of the remaining liquid in the container. The lab is analyzing it now." For the first time, I saw something flicker across my mother's face. Was it fear? "That's not necessary," she said, reaching for her purse. "I should take Olivia home. She just needs rest." "Mrs. Anderson," the doctor said firmly, "your daughter's symptoms suggest possible poisoning. We need to know what she's been ingesting." The word poisoning hung in the air like a thundercloud. Mom's face went pale, and Megan finally lowered her phone. I closed my eyes, fighting another wave of dizziness. Somewhere in the hallway, I heard the rapid approach of footsteps. The lab results were coming, and with them, the truth about Mom's special smoothies. The lab technician entered the room holding a file, her expression grave. She whispered something to the doctor, whose eyes widened as he reviewed the results. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. "Mrs. Anderson," the doctor said, his tone now sharp, "would you like to explain why we found significant levels of sedatives and weight loss medications in your daughter's smoothie?" The room fell silent. Megan's phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. Dad, who had been quietly standing in the corner, stepped forward. "There must be some mistake," he stammered. "Martha only uses natural ingredients." The doctor continued, his voice growing harder with each word. "We found traces of multiple prescription medications, including some that are not legally available in the United States. Mixed together, these substances could have caused severe organ damage or worse." I stared at my mother, who had backed away from my bed, her face ashen. All those months of feeling dizzy, weak, and disoriented suddenly made terrible sense. "Mom," my voice cracked. "What did you put in those smoothies?" She wrung her hands, her carefully maintained facade cracking. "I just wanted to help you, sweetie. You were always so tired, so sluggish." Megan's followers love her energy, her slim figure. "I thought if you just had a little help." "Help?" I interrupted, anger finally breaking through my weakness. "You've been drugging me." "They were just supplements," Mom protested. "Special ones I got from my wellness group. Marie's daughter lost 30 pounds using them. And you were starting to look so much better, more like Megan." "Mrs. Anderson," the doctor interrupted, "these aren't supplements. They're dangerous combinations of prescription medications. Your daughter could have died." Security arrived at the door, accompanied by 2 police officers. A detective followed, holding what I recognized as my mother's phone. "We found evidence in your text messages about purchasing unregulated pharmaceuticals," the detective stated. "You'll need to come with us." Mom's composure shattered completely. "But I'm her mother. Everything I did was for her own good." "Olivia, tell them. Tell them how much better you were looking." As they led her away, I noticed Megan had retreated to the far corner, her influencer confidence completely gone. Dad stood frozen, his world visibly crumbling around him. The detective stayed behind to take my statement. I told him everything, the daily smoothies, the increasing symptoms, Mom's insistence that I drink them while she watched. As I spoke, memories surfaced of other strange incidents, Mom's special teas that made me sleep for hours, vitamin pills that left me too shaky to eat. "Your mother's wellness group is part of an ongoing investigation," the detective explained. "They've been importing illegal weight loss drugs and marketing them as natural supplements. Several members have already been arrested. A nurse brought in my test results. 3 months of consuming these cocktails had strained my liver and affected my heart rhythm. I would need ongoing treatment to reverse the damage." Dad finally spoke, his voice small and broken. "I thought you were just being lazy. Every time you complained, I told you to try harder." "You never listened," I replied, too tired to soften the blow. "None of you did." Megan stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know, Liv. I swear I didn't know what Mom was doing. But I promoted those wellness groups on my channel. What if other people's mothers—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Her perfectly curated wellness empire suddenly seemed built on quicksand. The next few hours were a blur of medical procedures and police statements. Amanda stayed with me, her steady presence a stark contrast to my family's chaos. She had saved the smoothie sample that led to the discovery. More importantly, she had believed me when my own family wouldn't. "The wellness group your mother was involved with," the detective said before leaving. "They're facing serious charges. We'll need your testimony." I nodded, thinking of other potential victims, other daughters whose mothers might be mixing special smoothies right now. As night fell, my hospital room finally quieted. Dad and Megan had left, both shattered by the day's revelations. My phone buzzed with message after message from relatives and family friends, ranging from shock to denial to angry accusations that I was destroying the family by pressing charges. I turned off my phone and stared out the window at the city lights. The dizziness had finally subsided, my thoughts clearer than they'd been in months. The doctor said it would take time for all the drugs to leave my system, for my body to heal from what my mother had done to me. But as I lay there, I realized something else needed to heal too. My ability to trust, to believe in my own perceptions when everyone around me denied them. For months, they had gaslit me into doubting my own body's warnings, all in the name of health and family concern. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Amanda, returning with a cup of plain water. No special ingredients, no secret supplements. "The police want to know if you're planning to press charges," she said gently. I took a sip of water, appreciating its simple purity. "Yes," I replied, my voice stronger than it had been in months. "Yes, I am." The truth about Mom's smoothies had come out, but I knew this was just the beginning. 6 months after my hospitalization, I sat in a courtroom, watching my mother being sentenced for her crimes. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by modest business wear, her usual confident demeanor shattered. The judge's voice was stern as he read out the charges: intentional drugging, illegal importation of pharmaceuticals, and reckless endangerment. The evidence was overwhelming, not just my case, but others. 3 more daughters from her wellness group had come forward, all with similar stories of health smoothies that left them sick and disoriented. "Martha Anderson, you use your position as a mother to systematically poison your own daughter," the judge declared. "This court sentences you to 5 years in prison, with additional mandatory counseling." Mom broke down, turning to face me in the gallery. "I only wanted you to be perfect. Like Megan. Everything I did was out of love." I didn't respond. These past months had taught me that some kinds of love are more toxic than any smoothie. The aftermath of Mom's arrest had transformed our family. Dad sold their house, unable to face the neighbors' whispers. He'd moved to a small apartment across town, where he was finally attending therapy to address his enabling behavior. Our Sunday dinners were replaced by awkward monthly meetings at neutral restaurants, where we carefully avoided discussing Mom. Megan had faced her own reckoning. Her wellness empire crumbled after her followers learned about our mother's crimes. She'd lost sponsorships and followers, forcing her to confront the dangerous side of the health culture she promoted. Now she was back in college, studying nutrition properly this time, determined to rebuild her career on a foundation of genuine health science rather than dangerous trends. "I'm so sorry, Liv," she told me recently, her designer outfits replaced by simple jeans and t-shirts. "I was so caught up in the lifestyle, the followers, the pressure to be perfect. I never saw what it was doing to our family." My own recovery had been a journey of both physical and emotional healing. The doctors said I was lucky. With proper treatment, my liver and heart functions were returning to normal. The psychological scars took longer to address. I'd started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma, learning to trust my own instincts again. Amanda had stayed by my side through everything. She testified at the trial, describing how she'd noticed my declining health when my own family ignored it. Her friendship became my anchor as I rebuilt my life. The case had attracted media attention, shining a light on the dangerous intersection of family pressure and wellness culture. I'd received messages from women across the country sharing similar stories of mothers, sisters, and aunts pushing dangerous health products on them. After the sentencing, I started a support group for survivors of family-induced medical abuse. We met weekly, sharing stories of smoothies, supplements, and subtle poisoning disguised as care. Some women cried as they described years of being told they were too sensitive or not trying hard enough, while being systematically drugged by those they trusted most. Today, standing outside the courthouse after the sentencing, I felt lighter. Not because of any smoothie or supplement, but because I'd finally broken free from the toxic cycle of family perfectionism. Dad approached me hesitantly. "Olivia, I don't know how to make this right." "You can't," I replied honestly. "But you can do better going forward. We all can." Megan was waiting by my car, her face free of the heavy makeup she used to wear. "Want to grab some coffee?" she asked. "Just coffee, nothing added. I promise." I smiled, appreciating the small gesture of understanding. We drove to a local cafe, one I discovered during my recovery. The barista knew my order. Plain green tea, no special ingredients needed. As we sat there, Megan showed me her new blog post, an honest account of how wellness culture had poisoned our family. The comments were flooding in, others sharing their own stories of pressure, perfectionism, and dangerous health trends. "You know what Mom never understood?" I said, watching steam rise from my cup. "True health isn't about looking perfect or fitting some ideal. It's about listening to your body and respecting its limits. Megan nodded, tears in her eyes. I wish we'd all learned that sooner. My phone buzzed, a reminder for tomorrow's support group meeting. We'd be discussing how to set boundaries with family members who push dangerous health trends. I'd share my story again, not as a victim, but as a survivor who'd learned to trust herself. The afternoon sun streamed through the cafe window, warming my face. For the first time in years, I felt truly healthy, not because of any smoothie, but because I'd finally learned to protect myself from the kind of love that poisons. My mother's health smoothies had nearly destroyed me, but they'd also set me free. Free from the need to be perfect, free from toxic family expectations, and free to be healthy on my own terms. I took another sip of my tea, savoring its simple, honest warmth. Sometimes the best medicine isn't a magical cure-all. It's the courage to say no to the people who claim to know what's best for you, even when those people are family. Especially when they're family. These iPads were meant for my twins, not your kids, Vanessa announced, snatching the wrapped packages from my stunned children's hands. Tyler and Taylor need them for their advanced classes. Your kids would just waste them on games anyway. My name is Olivia Preston, and I'll never forget the look of devastation on my 10-year-old twins, Emma and Ethan, as their aunt tore away their birthday gifts in front of everyone at the dinner party. Vanessa, those were specifically bought for Emma and Ethan, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my rage. Their grandparents purchased those gifts for their birthday. I can do whatever I want in my house, she cut me off, her perfectly manicured finger pointing toward the door. And right now, I want you and your little budget family to leave. You're ruining the ambience of our dinner party. My husband, Mark, Vanessa's younger brother, finally spoke up. Come on, V, it's the kid's birthday. You can't seriously be. Actually, I am serious, she interrupted. My twins have their piano recital next month, and they need iPads for their sheet music. It's educational, unlike whatever your children would use them for. I glanced at my brother-in-law, David, silently pleading for him to intervene, but he just stared at his plate, avoiding eye contact. The silence was broken by my daughter's sob. Emma couldn't hold back her tears anymore. Ethan put his arm around his sister, trying to be strong even as his own eyes glistened. Let's go, I whispered, taking their hands. We don't need to stay where we're not wanted. The drive home was heartbreaking. From the back seat came the muffled sounds of my children trying to hide their disappointment. They had been looking forward to this birthday dinner for weeks, excited to celebrate with their cousins. Now they were heading home early, without their gifts, their special day ruined. I can't believe she did that, Mark said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. My own sister. What's happened to her? I didn't answer. I was too busy thinking about the past 5 years, during which Vanessa had steadily become more entitled since David's promotion at the investment firm had catapulted them into a new tax bracket. We'll get you new iPads, Mark promised the kids, glancing in the rearview mirror. Better ones. I knew we couldn't afford it. Mark's teaching salary and my part-time nursing job barely covered our mortgage. The twins' grandparents had saved for months to buy those gifts. But I nodded anyway, unwilling to add financial worry to my children's distress. That night, as I lay awake replaying the humiliation, something inside me hardened. I wouldn't allow Vanessa to treat my children like second-class family members anymore. The next morning, I called my in-laws to explain what had happened. As expected, they minimized the situation. I'm sure Vanessa meant well, my mother-in-law said. Those devices are expensive, and Tyler and Taylor are in all those advanced programs. So my children don't deserve nice things because they're not in private school? I asked, trying to keep my tone civil. Of course not, dear, but perhaps simpler gifts would be more appropriate for them. Note your audience, as they say. I hung up feeling even more defeated. The whole family seemed determined to maintain Vanessa's position at the top. Over the next few weeks, I did some research on Vanessa and David's finances. Public records showed their mortgage, tax assessments, and incorporation documents for David's side business. Nothing invasive, just publicly available information that painted an interesting picture. They live like they're making twice what David actually brings home, I explained to Mark. The house, the cars, the private schools, the vacations. I think they're overextended. And if they are, he asked. Then we need to be prepared, I said simply. I'm not looking for revenge, I'm looking for protection for our family. 2 months after the birthday disaster, the first hint that my predictions were correct came from Mark's mother. "Has Vanessa asked you for money recently?" she inquired, her voice hushed. "No," Mark replied, glancing at me. "Why?" "She's asked us for quite a substantial loan. Something about temporary cash flow issues with David's work." After reassuring his mother that we hadn't been asked, Mark hung up and turned to me with raised eyebrows. "It's starting," I said quietly. 2 weeks after that call, Vanessa herself reached out. It was the first direct contact since the birthday dinner fiasco. "Olivia, I need to speak with Mark," she said when I answered, her voice lacking its usual haughtiness. "He's teaching right now. Can I help you with something?" A pause. "We're having a small financial setback. David's firm is restructuring, and his position has been temporarily affected. I was hoping Mark might be able to help us with a short-term loan." I kept my voice neutral. "How much are you looking for, Vanessa?" 50,000, she replied, as if asking to borrow sugar. "Just until David's situation stabilizes. We have the children's private school tuition due next week." I nearly choked. $50,000 was more than Mark made in a year. That's a substantial amount. I'll have to discuss it with Mark. "Please do," she said curtly. "And Olivia? This stays between family. No need for anyone to know about our temporary situation." After hanging up, I immediately called Mark at school. When he heard the amount Vanessa was requesting, he was speechless. "We don't have that kind of money," he finally said. "Even if we wanted to help her, which I'm not sure we do after how she treated our kids." "I know, but this confirms what I suspected. They're in serious financial trouble." That evening we learned just how serious. Mark's father called, agitated and upset. "David's been let go," he said. "Not restructuring, fired. Something about risky investments with client money. There's talk of an investigation." Over the next few days, the family crisis deepened. Vanessa and David's financial house of cards was collapsing rapidly. He hadn't just been fired. He was under investigation for financial improprieties. Their mortgage was underwater, their credit cards maxed out, and the private school was threatening to expel the twins for unpaid tuition. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy, not for Vanessa, but for her children. Tyler and Taylor were innocent in all this, just like Emma and Ethan had been innocent at the birthday dinner. A week later, Vanessa appeared at our door unannounced. Gone was the designer outfit and perfect makeup. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Is Mark home?" she asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "He'll be back soon. Would you like to come in?" She nodded and followed me to the kitchen, perching awkwardly on a chair. Our modest home, which she had once mocked as quaint and budget-friendly, now seemed to intimidate her. "Coffee," I offered. "Please." As I prepared it, she finally spoke. "Everything's gone, Olivia. The house is being foreclosed. David's under investigation. We're selling everything just to pay for a lawyer." Her voice cracked. "The kids are devastated about leaving their school." I placed the coffee in front of her. "I'm sorry about the children. They don't deserve this." She looked up sharply, catching my deliberate echo of her own dismissive attitude toward my kids. "I know what you must be thinking," she said. "That I deserve this. That it's karma." "What I think doesn't matter. What do you need, Vanessa?" She took a deep breath. "We need somewhere to stay. Just for a little while. The house, we have to be out by next week. My parents' place is too small, and David's family is in Europe." The request hung in the air between us. This woman who had humiliated my children, snatched their gifts, and cast us out of her home was now asking to move in with us. Before I could respond, Mark walked in, freezing when he saw his sister at our table. "Vanessa, what's going on?" She repeated her situation and request. Mark listened silently, then looked at me. We had already discussed this possibility in our contingency planning, but the reality was different from the hypothetical. "We need to talk privately," Mark told his sister. "Can you give us a minute?" In our bedroom, he turned to me. "What do you think?" I thought about Emma and Ethan, how they had cried all the way home that night. I thought about the iPads that now sat in Tyler and Taylor's rooms. I thought about years of Vanessa's superiority and cruelty. Then I thought about what my own mother had always taught me. Be the person you needed when you were suffering. "They can stay," I said quietly, "but with conditions." Mark nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. She won't like them. She's not in a position to refuse. We returned to the kitchen, where Vanessa waited anxiously. We have a proposal for you, I said, meeting her eyes directly. But first, let me remind you of something that happened not too long ago at your house. Vanessa's face paled as I recounted that birthday dinner. My tone wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact, but each detail landed like a stone in still water. You humiliated my children on their birthday, I concluded. You took gifts their grandparents had saved for months to buy. You mocked our lifestyle and our values. And now you're asking to live in our home, the same little budget house you've sneered at for years. She stared at her coffee cup, unable to meet my eyes. I know, I was wrong. Yes, you were, Mark agreed, his voice firm but not unkind. And if we agree to help you now, things have to be different. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table between us. These are our conditions. If you agree to them, you and your family can stay in our guest room, and the kids can share with Emma and Ethan until you get back on your feet. Vanessa tentatively opened the folder, her eyes widening as she read the first page. You want the iPads back? She asked, looking up. They were never yours to take, Mark said. They were gifts for our children from our parents. We want them returned, with an apology to Emma and Ethan. She nodded slowly. What else? You'll contribute to household expenses, I continued. Not much, we know your situation, but something to cover the additional utilities and food. You'll also help with household chores. We both work full-time, and adding 4 people to our home means more cooking, cleaning, and laundry. Vanessa continued reading, her expression shifting between disbelief and resignation. You want Tyler and Taylor to attend public school with your kids. It makes the most sense financially, Mark explained. Emma and Ethan go to the school where I teach. It's a good school, Vanessa. Your kids will be fine there. The final condition made her pause the longest. Family therapy? That's non-negotiable, I said firmly. This family has patterns that need to be addressed if we're going to live together, even temporarily. Your behavior toward us, our children's relationships, your parents' enabling, all of it needs to be discussed openly with a professional mediator. Vanessa closed the folder, her hands shaking slightly. You've clearly thought this through. We have, Mark confirmed. Because despite everything, your family, we want to help you, but not at the expense of our own children's well-being or our self-respect. She was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options, which we all knew were extremely limited. Finally, she nodded. I'll talk to David, but I think we'll accept your conditions. 3 days later, they moved in. The reunion between the cousins was awkward at first. Emma and Ethan were wary, while Tyler and Taylor were embarrassed and subdued. But children are remarkably adaptable, and by the end of the first week, all 4 were cautiously playing together. The iPads were returned with a strained apology from Vanessa and David. To my surprise, Tyler and Taylor had also insisted on writing apology notes to their cousins, expressing genuine remorse for what had happened. We didn't want to take your presents, Tyler confessed to Emma when they thought no adults were listening. Mom just took them, and we didn't know how to say no. The first family therapy session was tense but productive. Vanessa struggled to acknowledge the patterns of favoritism and materialism she had developed, while David had to confront his role in enabling her behavior through risky financial decisions. I wanted to give her everything, he admitted. I thought if I could just make enough money, be successful enough, she'd be happy. But it was never enough. Week by week, things began to shift. The practical realities of living in our budget home taught Vanessa and David lessons that no amount of lecturing could have conveyed. The necessity of carpooling, meal planning, and careful shopping became their new normal. The children adapted more quickly than the adults, with Tyler and Taylor discovering that public school offered friendships and opportunities they'd never experienced in their exclusive private academy. 1 month into their stay, I came home early from my nursing shift to find Vanessa at the kitchen table, surrounded by coupons and grocery ads. I figured out how to save $30 on this week's shopping, she said, looking up with a kind of pride I'd never seen in her before. And I'm making lasagna for dinner, enough for everyone, with leftovers for lunch tomorrow. I smiled, sitting down across from her. You're getting good at this. It's actually satisfying, she admitted, in a way I didn't expect. That night after dinner, as all 4 children worked on homework together at the dining table, Vanessa pulled me aside. I've been thinking about that birthday dinner, she said quietly. About how I behaved. I don't think I've properly apologized to you and Mark. You haven't, I confirmed. She took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Olivia. Truly sorry. I was cruel and entitled, and I was jealous. Jealous? I repeated, surprised. Of what? Of your family, your marriage, the way your kids look at you. Her voice caught. David and I had all the things, the house, the cars, the vacations. But you and Mark, you have something real. I think I always knew that, and it made me resentful. The honesty of her admission caught me off guard. It was the first time in all the years I'd known Vanessa that she'd shown genuine vulnerability. Thank you for saying that, I said simply. 2 months after they moved in, David found a new job. It didn't pay nearly what he'd made before, but it was honest work with a stable company. Vanessa started working part-time at a local boutique, discovering she had a talent for styling and customer service when she wasn't looking down on the clientele. They found a modest apartment within their new budget and prepared to move out. The night before they left, we had a family dinner, not unlike the birthday celebration that had started everything, but with a completely different atmosphere. As we cleared the dishes together, Vanessa handed me a small box. What's this? I asked. Open it, she urged. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with 4 small charms, one for each of our children. It's not expensive, she said quickly. But I wanted you to have something to remember that sometimes the greatest gift isn't what we receive, but what we're willing to give when it's hard. I clasped the bracelet around my wrist, thinking about the journey we'd all taken. Who would have thought, I said with a smile, that losing everything would help you find something better. The manila envelope landed on my kitchen counter with a soft thud, but the sound might as well have been a thunderclap in my quiet suburban home. I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, always used that precise, almost calligraphic script that seemed to scream control and judgment. My name is Olivia Hartley, 38 years old, a single mother of twins Emma and Ethan, who are now 15 and the absolute center of my universe. For years, Eleanor has made it her personal mission to criticize every aspect of my parenting, my career, and essentially my entire existence. I've been a pediatric nurse for 15 years, working nights and weekends to provide the best possible life for my children after my husband, Eleanor's son, walked out when the twins were just 3. Mark has disappeared into the corporate world, sending sporadic child support checks and making even more sporadic appearances in our lives. But I've never let that define us. I've saved meticulously, creating a college fund for Emma and Ethan that is their ticket to whatever dreams they want to pursue. Each birthday, each holiday, I've squirreled away money. Every overtime shift has been another brick in their educational foundation. What Eleanor doesn't know is that I've been documenting her interference for years. The passive-aggressive comments, the subtle attempts to undermine my parenting, the constant comparisons to her perfect nieces and nephews. I've kept records of everything. When I opened the envelope, I knew immediately something was wrong. Bank documents, official-looking forms, a letter from the bank manager requesting a meeting about the children's college savings account. My hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from a rising tide of anger that has been building for years. The letter detailed an investigation into the account triggered by a complaint from a family member, Eleanor, suggesting that I was financially irresponsible and potentially misusing the funds meant for my children's education. She didn't, I whispered to myself, though I knew exactly what she had done. Emma walked into the kitchen, her long hair pulled back in a ponytail, basketball practice bag slung over her shoulder. Mom, you okay? I took a deep breath. Everything's fine, sweetie. Just some paperwork. But everything was not fine. Eleanor had crossed a line, and this time she had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my laptop and began organizing the files I've collected over the years. Text messages, email exchanges, recorded phone calls, all carefully documented and time-stamped. Evidence of Eleanor's continuous attempts to interfere in our lives. The bank's investigation was about to become her worst nightmare. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Sarah. Coffee tomorrow? You look like you need to talk. I smiled. Sarah has been my rock through everything, my divorce, raising the twins, dealing with Eleanor's constant criticism. Definitely, I texted back. I have a plan. Little did Eleanor know, I've been preparing for this moment for years. She thought she was protecting her grandchildren's future, In reality, she was about to learn that you don't mess with a mother who has receipts. And I had more than just receipts. I had a meticulously crafted strategy that would expose every single one of her manipulative tactics. The college fund wasn't just money. It was my children's dreams, their potential, their future. And I would be damned if I let anyone, especially Eleanor, threaten that. As the evening settled around me, with Emma practicing basketball drills in the backyard and Ethan studying in his room, I felt a sense of calm determination. This wasn't just about defending our financial security. This was about finally standing up to years of subtle manipulation, about showing my children that we refused to be victims. Eleanor had no idea what was coming, and I was going to make sure she learned a lesson she would never forget. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy, but Sarah and I sat in our usual corner, voices low and intense. She actually tried to freeze the kids' college fund. Sarah's eyes widened, her legal background already analyzing the situation. I slid the bank documents across the table. Not just tried, she fabricated a whole narrative about my financial instability. Sarah's fingers traced the paperwork, her expression hardening. This is more than just family drama. This could be considered financial harassment. What Eleanor didn't understand was that I had been preparing for this moment for years. As a pediatric nurse, I'd learned to be meticulous, to document everything. My shift reports were legendary at the hospital for their precision, and I applied that same level of detail to protecting my children. I want to do this strategically, I explained. I don't just want to stop her. I want her to understand the consequences of her actions. Sarah nodded, pulling out her legal pad. We'll need a comprehensive approach, financial documentation, communication records, evidence of her pattern of interference. I pulled out a thick folder, years of carefully preserved communications. Text messages where Eleanor criticized my parenting, emails suggesting I was an unfit mother, voicemails filled with passive-aggressive comments. Remember when she told Ethan his science project wasn't good enough? I asked. I recorded that conversation. Sarah's eyebrows rose. You're serious about documentation? Survival mechanism, I replied dryly. Single motherhood teaches you to be prepared. Our plan began to take shape. We would not just defend against Eleanor's attack. We would counterattack with surgical precision. First, we gather comprehensive financial documentation. Every overtime shift, every careful investment, every sacrifice I made for the twins' future would be meticulously cataloged. Second, we'd involve the legal system. Sarah knew family law attorneys who specialize in complex familial conflicts. She doesn't just want to interfere, Sarah muttered, reviewing the documents. She wants to control. By noon, we had a multi-pronged strategy. Financial records would be compiled. Legal notices would be prepared. And most importantly, we would expose Eleanor's true motivations. What Eleanor didn't know was that I had been collecting more than just paper evidence. I had recordings, screenshots, and a comprehensive timeline of her manipulative behavior. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Mom, can we talk about college visits soon? The timing was perfect. My children's dreams were exactly what I was fighting to protect. That evening, I sat the twins down. Emma, always perceptive, knew something was happening. Grandma's trying to mess with our college fund, I explained honestly. But we're going to handle this. Ethan looked worried. Can she do that? Absolutely not, I said firmly, and I'm going to prove it. The next few days became a carefully orchestrated operation. Bank statements were organized. Legal consultations were scheduled, and all the while, Eleanor had no idea what was coming. My mother-in-law believed she was protecting her grandchildren's future. In reality, she was about to learn a critical lesson about underestimating a determined mother. Sarah contacted a specialized family law attorney, Maria Rodriguez, who handled complex familial financial disputes. This isn't just about money, Maria explained during our strategy session. This is about control, about undermining your parental authority. The evidence was damning. Eleanor hadn't just attempted to interfere with the college fund. She had systematically tried to undermine my relationship with my children for years. We'll file a cease and desist, Maria advised, and we'll be prepared to take this further if necessary. As the strategy took shape, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete control. Eleanor thought she was protecting her grandchildren. She had no idea she was about to face the most formidable opponent possible, a mother who would do anything to protect her children's future. The next move was crucial. We would not just defend, we would expose. Are you ready? Sarah asked, reviewing the final documents. I looked at the photos of Emma and Ethan, their dreams captured in snapshots of science fairs, basketball games, quiet study sessions. More than ready, I replied. Eleanor's carefully constructed facade was about to crumble, and I would be the one holding the wrecking ball. The family gathering was supposed to be a typical Sunday dinner at Eleanor's meticulously maintained suburban home, pristine white tablecloths, expensive china, and an atmosphere so carefully curated it felt more like a museum than a family space. I walked in with Emma and Ethan, my documentation neatly organized in a professional leather portfolio. Sarah's advice echoed in my mind. Stay calm. Let the evidence speak for itself. Eleanor's smile was brittle, her eyes already scanning the twins, looking for something to criticize. But today would be different. Before we eat, I said, my voice calm and clear, we need to discuss something important. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. My ex-husband, Mark, shifted uncomfortably. Eleanor's husband, Robert, looked confused. I pulled out the first document. These are comprehensive records of my financial management of the Children's College Fund. Eleanor's composure began to crack. I was just trying to protect. You were trying to control, I interrupted, and I have proof. The next hour was a systematic deconstruction of Eleanor's manipulations. Bank statements showing every careful investment, recordings of her attempts to undermine my parenting, text messages revealing her systematic effort to paint me as an unfit mother. You told Ethan his science project wasn't good enough. I played a recording. Ethan's face burned with remembered humiliation. Emma, typically quiet, spoke up. Grandma, why would you do that? The room went silent. Maria Rodriguez, the family law attorney, had prepared us for this moment. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented, time-stamped, and legally substantiated. Your attempts to interfere with the Children's College Fund constitute financial harassment, Maria explained. We have compiled a comprehensive file documenting your actions. Eleanor's defense crumbled. Mark, who had been silent, finally spoke. Mom, what were you thinking? The most devastating moment came when I presented the final document, a comprehensive report from a court-appointed financial expert validating my careful management of the twins' college fund. Not only have I protected their future, I said, but I've grown the fund beyond what was initially projected. Robert, Eleanor's husband, looked ashamed. Eleanor, what have you done? The legal consequences were clear. A cease and desist order would be filed. Eleanor would be prohibited from any further interference with the children's financial future. But this wasn't just about a legal victory. This was about reclaiming our family's narrative. I always tried to protect this family, Eleanor stammered, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. No, I replied firmly, you've tried to control it. Emma reached out and squeezed my hand. Ethan stood a little taller. The most powerful moment wasn't the legal documentation or the exposed manipulations. It was the silent understanding between me and my children. We were stronger together. Unbreakable. As we prepared to leave, Maria pulled me aside. Be prepared. She might try to retaliate legally. Let her try, I said quietly. The drive home was silent at first. Then Ethan spoke. Mom, how did you keep all those records? I smiled. Always be prepared, sweetheart. Emma laughed. Sounds like a mom thing to say. That night, as I helped them with homework, I realized this was about more than just a college fund. This was about teaching my children to stand up for themselves, to document the truth, to protect their dreams. Eleanor had tried to destroy our future. Instead, she had made us stronger. The college fund remained intact. My children's dreams were secure. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. Some battles are won not with anger, but with preparation, patience, and unwavering love. The summer breeze carried the scent of barbecue and freshly cut grass across my mother-in-law's backyard as our annual family reunion descended into chaos. My sister-in-law, Victoria, stood in the center of the gathering, holding my 12-year-old daughter Emma's pearl necklace, a gift from their grandmother on her deathbed. These are family heirlooms, Victoria announced, her voice dripping with satisfaction. They belong to real family members. My children have pure Mason blood. Yours don't. I watched helplessly as my daughter's eyes filled with tears. The pearls had been her most treasured possession, a final gift from the grandmother who loved her unconditionally. Now, Victoria was tearing them away, along with the other jewelry Grandma Mason had given my children before she passed. "You can't do this," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Those were gifts from Grandma Mason. She gave them to my children personally." Victoria's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Oh, please, Margaret. You really think some verbal promise matters? I found Grandma's old will. All family jewelry goes to blood descendants. Your adopted brats don't qualify." My husband James stood frozen beside me, caught between his sister's viciousness and his children's pain. We'd adopted Emma and her brother, Michael, as infants after years of fertility struggles. Grandma Mason had welcomed them with open arms, never once treating them differently from Victoria's biological children. "That's enough, Victoria." James finally spoke up, but his voice lacked conviction. He'd always struggled to stand up to his domineering older sister. "No, it's not enough," Victoria snapped. "I'm tired of pretending these children deserve our family's legacy. My kids are the true heirs." She turned to her teenagers, Jessica and Bradley, who stood smugly nearby. "Here, darling, this pearl set belongs to you now." I watched in horror as she fastened my daughter's necklace around Jessica's throat. The 15-year-old preened, shooting Emma a triumphant look. Bradley was already pawing through the box of watches and cufflinks that had been given to Michael. The other relatives shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Victoria had ruled the family ever since their parents passed, her force of personality steamrolling anyone who dared oppose her. But as I watched my children's hearts break, something inside me hardened into steel. "You have no idea what you're doing," I said quietly. Victoria barely spared me a glance, too busy distributing my children's inheritance to her precious offspring. "Oh," she smirked. "And what exactly am I doing, Margaret? Besides ensuring family heirlooms stay with real family?" I met her gaze steadily. "Making the biggest mistake of your life." She laughed again, but this time I heard a flicker of uncertainty. She'd expected me to break down, to cause a scene. My calm clearly unnerved her. "James, control your wife," she snapped. "She's embarrassing herself." But I was already gathering my family to leave. "Come on, kids," I said gently. "We're going home." "That's right, run away," Victoria called after us. "And don't expect to be welcomed at any more family events. These heirlooms are where they belong now, with real Masons." As we drove home, Emma sobbed quietly in the backseat while Michael stared stolidly out the window. James kept apologizing, saying we'd figure something out, but I barely heard him. My mind was already racing ahead, remembering the conversation I had with Grandma Mason just 2 weeks before she died. "My lawyer has everything in order," she told me, her wise eyes twinkling. "Victoria thinks she knows everything, but she's in for quite a surprise. You just remember, family isn't about blood. It's about love." I hadn't understood then, but now, watching my daughter's tear-stained face in the rearview mirror, I knew exactly what the old woman had meant. Victoria had no idea what was coming. That evening, after putting the kids to bed with extra hugs and promises that everything would be okay, I made a phone call to Mr. Patterson, Grandma Mason's longtime attorney. His response was exactly what I'd hoped for. "I was wondering when this would happen," he said grimly. "I think it's time we show Victoria the real will, don't you?" I smiled into the phone, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. "Yes, Mr. Patterson. I think it's definitely time." Victoria had just declared war on my children, thinking she held all the cards. But Grandma Mason had taught me well. Always be prepared and never let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness. The real battle was just beginning, and this time, I wasn't going to back down. The next morning, I sat in Mr. Patterson's office, surrounded by leather-bound law books and the comforting scent of old paper. He pulled out a thick manila envelope sealed with the law firm's official stamp. "Elizabeth Mason was a remarkable woman," he said, carefully extracting the documents. "She knew exactly how Victoria would react when she passed. That's why she took such precise measures." I leaned forward as he spread out the paperwork. There it was, Grandma Mason's true will, properly notarized and filed with the court. My hands trembled slightly as I read the first page. "This is very different from what Victoria claims to have found," I observed. Mr. Patterson nodded grimly. "That's because what Victoria has is an old draft from 10 years ago. Elizabeth updated her will shortly after your children's adoption. She was very specific about her wishes." The words on the page made my heart swell. I, Elizabeth Mason, being of sound mind, declare that all my grandchildren, both biological and adopted, shall share equally in my estate. Blood relation is not and never has been a determining factor in my definition of family. There's more, Mr. Patterson said, turning to the next page, a special provision regarding the family jewelry. I read on, a smile spreading across my face. Grandma Mason hadn't just included my children in her will. She'd specifically protected them from exactly this situation. The jewelry Victoria had seized wasn't just meant for my children. It was legally bound to them through an irrevocable trust. So Victoria has essentially committed theft, I said quietly. Precisely. Mr. Patterson's expression was stern. And given that these items are valued at over $50,000, we're talking about grand larceny. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Jessica wore Emma's pearls to church today. Everyone said they looked so much better on a real Mason. I showed the message to Mr. Patterson. He frowned, adding it to his growing file of evidence. Shall we proceed with the legal notifications? I thought about Emma's tears, Michael's quiet hurt, and years of Victoria's subtle and not-so-subtle jabs at my children's adoption status. Yes, I said firmly. It's time. The next day, Victoria received official correspondence from Mr. Patterson's firm. I wasn't there to see her reaction, but James told me she called him screaming, her voice hitting octaves he didn't know existed. This is ridiculous, she shrieked through the phone. Some trumped-up legal nonsense won't change the fact that my children are the real heirs. But her bravado crumbled when the second letter arrived, this one from the district attorney's office. Grand larceny charges weren't something even Victoria could bulldoze her way through. She showed up at our house that evening, makeup slightly smeared, clutching the jewelry box. This is emotional manipulation, she accused, thrusting the box at me. You're using legal tricks to steal my children's inheritance. I took the box calmly, checking that everything was accounted for. No, Victoria, I'm enforcing Grandma's actual wishes, the ones she put in writing legally, specifically to prevent this exact situation. She was old, Victoria snapped. She didn't know what she was doing. Actually, I replied, she knew exactly what she was doing. Would you like to see the video she recorded with her will? Victoria's face went pale. What video? I pulled out my tablet, queuing up the footage Mr. Patterson had provided. There was Grandma Mason, sharp as ever in her favorite blue sweater, speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, it means Victoria has tried to exclude my adopted grandchildren from their inheritance. Victoria, dear, I love you, but your obsession with blood relations stops here. Emma and Michael are Masons in every way that matters. The jewelry I gave them is legally theirs. And if you've tried to take it, well, I'm sure Mr. Patterson has already explained the consequences. Victoria sank onto our couch, her carefully constructed superiority crumbling. You planned this. You and Grandma, you set me up. No, I corrected her. Grandma simply knew you well enough to protect all her grandchildren from your prejudice. The only person who set you up was you. She left shortly after, but not before trying one last manipulation. If you do this, if you humiliate me legally, you'll destroy this family. I looked at her steadily. You did that yourself the moment you decided my children weren't real family members. Now please leave. Emma and Michael need to clean their jewelry before school tomorrow. Once she was gone, I called the kids downstairs. Emma's eyes lit up at the sight of her pearls. Michael reverently reclaimed the watch set his grandmother had given him. As they clutched their restored treasures, I shared the video of their great-grandmother, watching their faces as they heard her fierce defense of their place in the family. See, I told them, pulling them close. You were always real Masons, Grandma made sure of it. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she fingered her pearls thoughtfully. Mom, she whispered, do you think Aunt Victoria will ever accept us? I smoothed her hair back, choosing my words carefully. I don't know, sweetheart. But what I do know is that you don't need her acceptance. You have something much more powerful, Grandma's love, set in stone, and law. The next phase of the battle was about to begin. But for now, watching my daughter drift off to sleep wearing her rightful inheritance, I felt nothing but peace. Victoria had chosen warfare over family, but she'd learned the hard way that love, real love, was the strongest bloodline of all. The fallout from Victoria's actions rippled through the family like waves in a disturbed pond. Word spread quickly about Grandma Mason's video will and Victoria's attempted theft. The relatives who had stood silently during the reunion began reaching out, offering apologies and support. "We should have spoken up," my mother-in-law admitted during a quiet lunch. "Victoria's always been forceful, but this time she went too far. Elizabeth would be horrified by what she tried to do." Even Victoria's husband Tom contacted us privately. "The kids miss their cousins," he said, sounding tired. "Victoria's pride is making everyone miserable. Jessica tried to wear the pearls to school yesterday and Victoria wouldn't let her, said they were tainted now." I focused on helping Emma and Michael process everything. We had long talks about family, identity, and the different kinds of strength. Watching them regain their confidence was like seeing flowers turn toward the sun. "You know what's funny?" Michael said one evening, carefully cleaning his great-grandmother's watch. "Aunt Victoria kept saying we weren't real Masons, but Grandma made sure we were the ones who really understood what being a Mason means." The legal consequences caught up with Victoria in waves. First came the formal censure from the probate court, then the mandatory ethics classes she had to attend as part of her agreement to avoid criminal charges. Mr. Patterson had been thorough in documenting everything. Victoria's own children began questioning her behavior. Jessica, perhaps feeling guilty about her role in hurting Emma, reached out via text. "I'm sorry I wore your necklace. Mom said it was okay. But I knew it wasn't. Grandma gave those to you. I just wanted Mom to be proud of me." The message led to a careful reconciliation between the cousins. Without Victoria's influence, they remembered the friendship they'd shared before all this began. Bradley started inviting Michael to his soccer games again. Jessica and Emma cautiously resumed their tradition of weekend sleepovers. Victoria, however, remained entrenched in her bitterness. She stopped attending family functions, claiming she couldn't bear to watch her niece and nephew flaunt their victory. When she did show up, she maintained a cold silence, broken only by occasional passive-aggressive comments. "At least my children know their real heritage," she muttered during Thanksgiving dinner, loud enough for everyone to hear. I watched Emma stiffen, but before I could respond, Jessica surprised everyone. "Mom, stop it. Grandma made it clear. Emma and Michael are our heritage." Victoria left the table in tears, but something had shifted. Her own children were rejecting her prejudices, choosing love over her narrow definition of family. The final breakthrough came unexpectedly, almost a year after the initial confrontation. While cleaning out some old boxes, Emma found a letter from Grandma Mason, written just before she passed. "My dearest granddaughter, family isn't in the blood. It's in the heart. The pearls I gave you aren't just jewelry. They're a reminder that you are a Mason through and through. Your strength isn't in your DNA. It's in how you love, how you forgive, and how you stand up for what's right. Victoria may need time to understand this, but you, my sweet girl, have always known it." Emma shared the letter at the next family gathering. Victoria, who had been dragged there by Tom, sat silently as it was read aloud. I watched her face carefully, seeing something crack in her carefully maintained facade. Later that evening, she approached Emma hesitantly. "I found something," she said, pulling out an old photograph. "It's Grandma, holding you the day you came home. She had the same look she had when Jessica was born." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was a start. Victoria began making small efforts, asking about the kids' activities, acknowledging their achievements, even defending them when a distant relative made a thoughtless comment about adoption. The family jewelry stayed where it belonged, with the grandchildren Grandma Mason had chosen. Emma wore her pearls proudly, no longer worried about proving her right to them. Michael's watch collection became a talking point that eventually helped him and Victoria bond over their shared interest in antiques. Looking back now, I realized Grandma Mason's true gift wasn't just the jewelry or the ironclad will. It was the lesson she taught all of us about real family strength. Victoria had tried to define family through blood, but in the end, love proved to be the stronger tie. "You know what, Mom?" Emma said recently, helping me sort through old family photos. "I think Grandma knew this would happen. Not just Victoria taking the jewelry, but all of it, the fight, the healing, everything. She knew we needed to learn what family really means." Looking at my daughter, confidently wearing her great-grandmother's pearls while helping preserve family memories, I knew she was right. Some lessons can only be learned through adversity, and some bonds grow stronger for having been tested. Victoria may have started this journey thinking she was protecting her family's legacy, But in the end, she learned what that legacy truly meant. Not blood, not jewelry, but the capacity to grow, to love, and to become better than we were before.